Shall I introduce you? Fadi, thank you very much for agreeing with this. We're going to have a little chat, casual chat, about yourself, really, if that's all right. I know you love talking about yourself.
Thanks, Carl.
And sort of where it all started and where we are now with what VSSAcademy are doing. Where did you start? I mean, where did you do your MSc? Where did you start your MSc?
I did my MSc at UCLan, funnily enough. But the way the whole VSS thing started, it goes right back to when I was studying medicine at Charing Cross. It finished off as Imperial, but while I was studying, I worked as an oral surgeon, and then I started getting into implantology. That was in '98. Started placing implants, and the whole thing about the visiting specialist developed, because I thought I'm visiting lots of practices, doing MOS and implants and kind of making a living out of it, and it's a good system. It's a good and now it's obvious a lot of people do it. At that time there weren't that many people going around, particularly with implants, placing implants. So at that point I thought, actually, wouldn't it be great if I get a team of people I trust to work with, and we all go out and do implants, make it into a business. That's basically.
So that started in '98 with just you.
So and then gradually by 2002 I left hospital. Got married, and all of a sudden my whole outlook changed. I didn't want to pursue the maxillofacial pathway any longer, because I wanted to go into the implant side of things with kids on the way and so on. The whole outlook.
Was it the kids, or was it that you just enjoyed doing the implants more than the?
It was a combination, because I loved it. I absolutely loved the implants, because it had the surgery, it had the sinus grafts, it had the block grafts, it had the prosthetic aspects, it has a bit of perio obviously involved in it, and most aspects of dentistry were involved in it. And there was a lot to learn and lots of challenges. So it was interesting. It was challenging enough. And on the other side, I thought, actually, the kids are coming along on calls and being away from home for 3 months at a time and so on. It just, the appeal changed. My perspective changed. The perspective on life changes, doesn't it? When you have family on the way and so on. So I made the hardest decision of my career to hand in my resignation.
Okay.
So I actually resigned from hospital, which was a tough decision. But
which hospital was that?
I was at West Middlesex at that time, doing general surgery.
So did you feel that was quite a risk? It
was scary.
Was it a bit nervous and
very,
because you're giving away I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, I'm just trying to work it out. So you're giving away an employed status, where you've got the safety net, or you think you've got a safety net, because obviously they can tell you
change.
That can change. So you're giving that away, and then you're going out on your own as totally self-employed. But you're not reliant on being within a practice and that protection of being an associate. You've got no protection, because you're going away and you're visiting practices. And you're hoping that you get on with the people that you're working with. I know a little bit.
You've done it as well.
Because I'm doing it. Maybe I should ask you a few more questions. For me, when I did that, it was very nerve-wracking. I mean, for me, I thought this could be me going back into being an associate again. I'd always got that safety net, I suppose. I always knew that I could drop back to something that I did not want to do anymore. But it was always there. I don't know whether you felt the same. But it's still a big step, isn't it? It's
scary.
It's scary. But do you look back and think at any point that it's something that you regret, or did you have any point where you just thought, I wish I hadn't done that?
No, there are points where I've missed aspects of it, definitely. I mean, I love maxillofacial surgery. I loved it. I mean, I was one of those guys who would go in my free time and watch and assist. And it's a bit sad. I didn't do it every Friday night, but some Friday nights I went out and did extra suturing in A&E. In those days you could, as a student even, I want to get good at suture. So I absolutely loved it. I couldn't have enough of it. So I miss aspects.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you a little bit, but do you think those opportunities are still there for those people that want to do that? Or are they a little bit harder now?
It's harder.
Yeah.
Much harder.
I think so. I mean, I guess we were lucky.
Yes.
Because we've just said that we're both the same age.
Yeah.
Which I think...
Although you look much younger than I
do. I told you to put the makeup on. That's the only reason I look like this.
This is with makeup, mate.
but one of the things that I found when I was at dental school is that you could go in and do extra sessions, which you can't do anymore.
No.
The regulations have changed and they've kind of stopped that, which is a shame. I look back on that and I think for those people that were really keen...
Yes.
You had that opportunity, and it was the same, I guess, for both of us. You had the opportunity to go in and do those sessions, whereas now you've got so much red tape.
Yeah.
And I hope people listen to this and take note of this. So for those people that are keen and they do want to really relish what they do and they do enjoy what they do and they want to be better than what they are, the steps they have to go through are much harder.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, and also, to be honest, let's face it, the workforce is needed.
Yeah.
So I remember when I went to help in the A&E sessions, the doctors were delighted.
Yeah.
Because, that means that freed them up to do other things. But I wanted to get good at suturing. They had somebody with a heart attack to have a look after and so on. So using, like you said, there's people who are keen to do extra sessions, whichever way it might be, whether it's to do extractions or suturing, whatever it is, then to use them in a wise way, actually, we should look at that somehow.
Yeah.
But it needs a bit of planning, it needs a bit of kind of clever thinking to try and make use of enthusiasm and not crush it, really.
I agree. I mean, how would you feel? Do you feel that the extension, I mean, when we look at the support staff, I know that the people that assist me would love to suture those patients. And I'm talking about the nurses that I work with. They're desperate to get their hands on those sutures and suture up. And I don't see why we couldn't look at that in the future of giving those skills. Because it does then free us up as the clinician to go and plan.
That's a good point.
So it's something that I could see their skills enhancing in the future with the right training, if only the people that were sort of looking down and making these regulations might just open their horizons up a little bit.
We need to think out of the box a bit, be more innovative and imaginative with things, and the nurses can do certain stuff now, which most practices don't use them for. But apart from the radiographs, they can take models. So they can do impressions for models. They can do a lot more than they do, which makes it more interesting for them, as well as save time for us.
I was doing a lecture on digital dentistry, and I know you're doing that today here. And one of the things that I thought was quite sad, really, was one of the clinicians was telling me that in the practice they work in, the nurses and the support staff are trained with the digital scanners. Yeah. So they can take the scan, which effectively is a photograph. Yeah. But the clinicians won't let them use the scanners, which I think is slightly short-sighted, because fine, I get it when it's a gadget and it's a new toy, and you want to play with it, but they're past that stage.
They've been trained. Yeah.
They've been trained, so they can take the scans, they can take the impressions, they can do the radiographs, and I think using that skill set and I think that makes for a better work environment. Yeah. Personally, I don't know whether you agree.
No, I totally agree. I think I think.
We've got deep quick, haven't we?
I know, that is deep for me anyway. I think it is worth looking at. I like that thought that you can actually make them more of your team. Yeah. I mean, I remember days even in hospital when we had nurses who were able to put cannulas in, but they're not allowed to. I was thinking, absolute. It was just nuts. Yeah. Thinking. We've got people with the skills, we need the skills, and yet, they're not allowed to do it. So if they've got the skills, they can be trained for it. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Sorry, and I took us off track a little bit.
That's all right.
So we were talking about your sort of, before we got to your MSc, about the work in practice and the sort of stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Stepping into that area where you had resigned your place at the hospital, and you how many practices was that you were visiting at the time?
At that time, well, when I resigned, I only had a handful that I was going to.
And this was just yourself at the time?
Just myself, and it was scary on various levels. One, because of thinking, okay, I'm self-employed now, I've got nothing to go back to in such as such, employment stopped, and also the career is at least put on hold. I mean, I could have gone back, so I could have given myself a year if it doesn't work out to go back. So it wasn't completely free falling. I had a parachute, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I basically started with that. Then what I did, I started to use, speak to colleagues, friends, go to meetings. And as I met dentists, they introduced me. Actually, most of it grew organically through word of mouth.
Yeah.
So, one colleague would say, actually, I've got a mate who needs somebody to place implants for them and to do manual surgery. In those days, not many people were providing implants. In fact, I remember having to convince some people that actually we should look into providing implants at the practice. So that's how it organically grew. And then I got other people on board. So when I got really busy, I thought, right, let's make it into a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Gradually, I got more colleagues on board and thought, okay, let's call it something, and that's why I call it VSS, Visiting Specialist Services.
Yeah.
In those days, basically, it did what it said. It does, visiting specialist services. It wasn't always specialists, but they were doing specialist type treatments. So
yes.
Perio. Yeah. At some stage, we were doing endo as well, but manual surgery, implants, those are the main things.
Yeah.
So once it grew to that level, then it came to a stage where I was placing and restoring. But the colleagues I was working with were interested, so I started training them into the restorative aspect. Then slowly, we decided, actually, let's run a course to train our colleagues to do the restorative aspect as we place. It makes us more efficient. Working in a team is more efficient. Again, our ethos with VSS has always been, it's got to be win-win. So the patient has got to be winning out of it, which is the primary thing, and then the practice got to win. If those two win out of what we do, we will inevitably win out of it. So that was the philosophy from the beginning. If I look after the patients and the practices, then
they'll look after you.
They'll look after us. So, and that was it worked. We did and everybody coming on board, yourself included, when we worked together. So we have the same philosophy. We want to sleep easier, and we do the best we can on every level. Then everybody's going to be winning out of it, and it just grew organically. Then we thought, right, now that people are restoring, started running courses, then developed it further and further into doing the implant courses, and I got involved with UCLA in 2012, 7 years ago.
7 years.
7 years, I know. I looked much younger before, and then I've loved working at UCLA. It has been.
They didn't have it, if I remember rightly, back then. They didn't have an implant course. They had an oral surgery.
There was the implant course had started.
It just started.
Yes, it had started.
Correct. Yeah. Take it back. Was it just in its infancy? Was it just?
It was. Yeah.
Maybe a year, 2 years.
When I got there, I started a whole new curriculum.
Yeah.
I took what we were teaching then, basically started a whole new curriculum and developed that side of it. And we had quite a small team back then at UCLA, and it's grown immensely through, everybody there, from St. John Crean to Malcolm Edwards, and that time Prof. Harris was there as well. And the whole thing grew at the postgraduate department. We were all on one level in one corridor, which was great, actually. In some ways, as you walked in, you could see everybody say hi. Now, different buildings, different parts of the building. So it's grown dramatically, and now there's a medical school at UCLan as well. So, but the postgraduate course went through a lot of development, and where we are at now, really like the products that we've come to, because always thought, if I was starting out, what would I like out of a course?
Yeah.
And we've put everything in there that we think is essential, both from having a full CBCT training to having fresh cadaver experience, to digital workflow, to patients to work on. And throughout the years, we also looked at barriers. Okay, why is it somebody comes on a course, wants to do implants, but then ends up not doing implants?
Yeah.
If it's because they think it's not for me, fair enough. That's fair enough. But if somebody really wants to but is struggling, okay, what are the barriers? And a lot of them have been down to mentoring, not being able to find a mentor, or having a mentor in an affordable way, or not being able to get the patients initially. And sometimes it becomes like a catch-22. I can't get a patient on board, and the confidence goes down.
Yeah.
Once they start to do cases, the confidence goes up, then they can actually promote the treatments better. So the barrier one was, okay, let's give patients on the course. So direct supervision. The other thing is, after MSc, 15 clinical days supervised is great, but it's not going to be enough for you to kind of fly solo completely, necessarily. For some it might, for some it might not be. So we thought post-MSc there's got to be mentoring, or even during MSc, outside of the course.
Yeah.
If they want to do more courses, more cases in practice, having a mentor there. So we developed, and we are actually in the process of developing that more.
Okay.
Getting a mentoring program.
Yeah.
For people to be able to do this in a.
Is that aside from the training centres? Is that something that
in
we're
addition,
talking about now,
yeah.
or in addition to the training centres as well?
Yeah. So at the moment we've got the training centres where they can get the supervised treatments at the training centres where the patients are given to them. We're looking at extra mentoring, both for straightforward cases, plus we're looking at doing like complex modules. So people who want to now progress to doing sinus grafts or soft tissue grafts or block grafts and so on, all of that we can do at some centres.
Okay.
So
I know. So for the purpose of people that will be tuning in to listen to what we're talking about, a training centre is. Well, should let you say what a training centre is, shouldn't I? So it's a practice that's already placing implants that, as VSS, offers the support to that practice. And then the mentees can travel, hopefully locally, to that practice and then be mentored with an experienced implantologist. And as I understand it, we have criteria with VSS as to what we choose as a mentor. So it's not somebody that's got no experience in implants.
Yeah.
It's not somebody that's got a little bit of experience in implants, but it's somebody that you personally, and I think the team at VSS and UCLan maybe may involved in that somehow?
Yeah, for the training centres, yes.
Yeah.
So for the training centres, we go through a whole quality assurance process for the practice. As you said, they are experienced at placing, restoring implants, and they have the same mentality in terms of, we follow the ITI protocols.
Yeah.
Pretty much, and the reason for that is because it's kind of evidence-based protocols, guys, and we try to be evidence-based as much as for everything we do. It's got to be evidence-based. Certainly, from the teaching point of view, one might do some things that are new when you're in hospital or at university level, but when we teach, it's got to be what's tried and tested, and which is so I'm going on a bit of a tangent because it's important to mention there's lots of fashions excuse me, in dentistry, but in implant dentistry even more.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to fall into these traps of oh, this is a new thing, let me jump into that. Think, okay, let's just make sure you're not going to get into trouble. Our aim in teaching is like, these things are tried and tested. Learn how to do this properly first. When you feel you're comfortable with that, you want to try some other things, fair enough, but don't go to the fashion, the latest fashion straight away, which unfortunately I've seen some colleagues do. And
do you think that one of the things that's difficult sometimes, certainly for people that are new to implants, and sometimes even people that are experienced with implants, is there are some very ethical companies out there that they're very good at selling.
Yes.
And you can be drawn into that sale.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think that certainly as sort of being course director here, that I see us not sort of being drawn into as such. Not that we say anything in particular about any one implant company.
No.
We try and teach that there is no sort of one implant company that we're going to suggest that they go and basically we're given the education that go and find your own way. Yeah. But here are some basic guidelines.
Absolutely.
But how would you say that do we do that in the course? I'm not aware of it. How would you say that we kind of put that be aware of those temptations, that fruit of my implant is great, it does this.
Yeah.
You can stick the implant in, you can put a crayon on top on the same day, and your patient's going to love it and it's going to work.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I hope...
Did you ever fall foul of anything like that at any point?
I've fallen foul of many things, but
yeah.
And certainly surgical techniques that were exciting, and having loved surgery and I've gone kind of almost full circle for trying really complex stuff and trying to put implants where it's really tricky to place, to now gone full circle to say, look, I want the bone and the soft tissue to be as ideal as possible before I place the implant.
Yeah.
Because that's the best for healing.
Yeah.
It's a piece of metal at the end of the day. It doesn't have its own blood supply. We need to make sure everything around it has got good blood supply so it can heal around it.
Yeah.
It's not magic, and the bone substitute is not pixie dust. It actually needs good blood supply. So taking that into account. So not pushing the remit necessarily as much, but doing things in a more a little bit more conservative way, because I want to make sure we get good results.
Or conventional.
More conventional, absolutely. I mean, there are, to be honest with you, this is some of the research I'm doing as well, which I've bored you with before, but just very briefly, it's on actually causes of periimplantitis.
Yeah.
We know there is a growing school of thought about actually...
I'm a geek, by the way, it doesn't bore me.
Oh, good. Might be boring somebody who's listening, but
they can tune out.
Yeah. In essence, Albrechtsen has been saying that for years, hasn't he? That is it an infection, or is it primarily a foreign body reaction? Where is the foreign body reaction coming from? Are the particles being released? Well, actually, there is growing evidence particles are released at various ways. One of the ways is when you're placing the implant. The shear forces can get things released into this osteotomy site. Yeah. And that may well be a problem. So how we place our implants, how much we torque them, it's not just about getting osteitis, it's about getting how many particles am I releasing in there.
It's fascinating stuff, isn't it?
It is, it is. So,
absolutely amazing.
So all of that comes in. So, maybe the conventional stuff wasn't that bad. Maybe we need to kind of revisit, again, I'm not saying I'm against any particular technique. That's the fashion. So, think about it with open eyes, think about it, the physiology behind it. Why should this work? Yeah. Where is the blood supply coming on? Is there a problem with this technique? Not now, but in 5, 6, 7 years' time. Yeah. How is that going to look in 6, 7 years' time? Does my patient know that could be a problem in 5, 6, 7 years' time? All of these things. So I hope we do cover that in the course, and that we are not married to any specific company, and we've always been very, I hope we've been verbal about it, to say, look, we have sponsors on the course, but what we teach is about how to choose a system based on what you know. So, like you were saying, understanding the system, and you choose what you want, but you know what to look for. If somebody says my implant is the best, then you got the right questions to ask them, and from the answers whether they have the evidence or not. Yeah. But from implant design to what material is it made of, to the placement protocols, all that jazz should be second nature to these guys when they finish the course, I hope.
Yeah.
Rather than say, I use that system because we were told that's the best system. That's not what we're about. We're about, here's the facts, here's how to think about it for yourself, physiologically using the facts, and you decide what you want to use. And
I know we've got a big team with VSSAcademy and UCLan. One of the members of that team was Alan.
Yes.
Who's specifically asked me to ask you several questions, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
One of which is, if you were to think about this and step outside of what you do, which can be difficult sometimes, and have a look at all the courses that are out there, what do you think makes sort of the VSS MSc sort of stand out as a course, or why would you think, well, if I've got this MSc course to pick, and you have all the ones that are, and there's several within the UK and there's several outside of the UK, what would make you think, okay, I'm going to pick VSS, or what have you put into VSS that makes you sort of think, we are up there?
I think, look, there are lots of good courses that I very much respect as well. So I'll talk about what VSS does and what I think is good about it. And why we've kind of put the curriculum to be as it is. Apart from the content, which I think is important, apart from it fulfilling not just a criteria for the FGTP training standards, it goes beyond that, I think, in terms of detail. So it is a master's level course. So the content in terms of knowledge base, we go in a lot of detail. It's not a basic course. It's people even on the certificate courses, the knowledge base that we cover, as you know, is quite high level. Apart from that, the things I mentioned earlier, like fresh cadaver course. I was at the beginning, to be honest, I wasn't sure if it was going to be useful for the course or not, and I nearly took it out until, when we've been there, as you know yourself, the students absolutely love it. It's amazing, because it's such a good experience, isn't it? They go through everything from suturing to GBR to placement and observing the anatomy. It gives another level of confidence.
Unbelievably so. For the when we've been there, for the students that have already got surgical skills, they can take that surgical skill to another level. So even to the point where they're repositioning nerves. And then for those that have got no surgical skills, getting the confidence to actually get in there and raise a flap. Some of them haven't raised a flap for years, if ever.
That's true. Very true.
I think it makes and suturing on pretty much as good as they're going to get onto a live person for the first time.
It's as close as you can get.
It is as close
to the
as
real
you can
thing,
get,
and so that's been of great value from people's feedback. So because of that, we kept it.
Can I stop you there to say? So based on that, what made you think that you were going to take that out of the course?
Well, I wasn't sure if they were actually appreciating it. For me, when we first put it in, I thought this is going to be great. And then I thought, I'm not sure if people are appreciating it, because not many people talked about the cadaver course. Until I thought...
Was that because it was like Fight Club? Because it has got that kind of... You do go in there and they do say, you're not allowed to take your mobile phone, you're not allowed to take pictures, you're not allowed to take cameras.
Yes, perhaps.
So we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to talk about Cadaver Day.
No, that's perhaps that's the reason. But it would have been a mistake to take it out. But before I made the decision, I went and asked the students, asked them to give feedback. What do you think of it? And the overwhelmingly positive, exciting feedback I got, I thought, okay, we're keeping it, because.
And that's one thing I've noticed. I'm interrupting you again, but that's one thing I've noticed with the course content throughout since I've started here with Birmingham for over the past 3-4 years, is that you've changed the content of the courses to adapt to the way that the learning aspects change.
Absolutely. And one of those changes is the CBCT course, because in my mind, again, if you're placing implants, you need to know about CBCTs. So as you know, we used to do just a single day. Now they have to have the whole CBCT training. Because without that, I don't think the training is complete. So we want to give as complete as a training. So that part of it, I think we're happy with it. Apart from that, I think what comes through VSS, obviously VSSAcademy, in conjunction with UCLan, we've got the university degree. I mean, that again in itself is a big thing, because people are doing the training, and most people like to have a qualification from it. Not everybody. Some people are happy to have a certificate, but some people want to have a university qualification. Great. Now we can do that. But the clinical supervision is very much a big attraction for the candidates, because they want to have, at the end of the day, it is hands-on practical skill which is not taught at undergraduate level. And this is very important. As every undergraduate I've spoken to, I haven't had anybody who said they've had more than, say, half a day on it, and at most they've placed some implants on a bit of plastic. Which in my mind is nowhere near enough. Even from undergraduate level, they should at least know who not to refer, how to assess an implant, because you can't avoid seeing people in practice who've had implants done, and you can't say, well, I didn't do it, I'm not going to touch it. That's supervised neglect, really. So they should be taught at least how to examine an implant. So having that in there, having the clinical aspects, and then post-course network. So we have a network of clinicians that we want to keep in touch. Trying to grow the alumni, have alumni meetings, and make the network actually use the network better, so we can actually all learn from each other. But if you're finding challenges in one part, even if it's not to do with implants, you've got a good network of colleagues and trust to actually go to and ask for advice. We've got the mentoring side post courses. Some people have done their exams, they've done MSCs, and are actually getting referrals, but there are certain aspects that they don't want to do themselves. For instance, sinus grafts, and they want to train for that. So we can actually take them through. We've got the advanced cadaver course. They can do the advanced cadaver course 3 days. They do everything, from block grafting to nerve, playing around with the nerve, finding out anatomy and sinus, crestal, transcrestal, open sinus grafts and what have you. They do the whole shebang, basically. So that would be step 1. Step 2 would be to observe and assist, then to be mentored, and then eventually, once for certain cases, to go solo. So that would be kind of a progression to complex if they want to go that route. So we're trying to kind of get all of that together. It's not just a course you've done, we'd like to be there to support throughout the whole process.
So going back to 1998?
Yes.
98, did you ever see then, when you made that decision, that you're going to be here doing this?
Not in a million years, no. I could have dreamt it, but at that time I thought I want to make something of this, because I thought it's a win-win. It's just good for patients, for them to stay in their practices, not to have to travel around. It's good for the practice, because from there it makes sense to treat patients at that level in their own practices. It's good for the likes of me, because we got more work. So that was the idea. Initially it was purely clinical. So I had that vision of making that clinical part a thing, making it bigger. But at that time, I hadn't dreamt about becoming an academic and kind of teaching and running MSCs, and I would have loved that, But at that time, I didn't think it would be something I would do. But
so when you say think, what would you say that was something that might have been in the back of your head, or it wasn't even there? It wasn't a thought or anything. It was just something that sort of grew.
It grew, really.
You kind of found a pathway that you liked, and you kept following that pathway.
I had done teaching on a small basis at that stage. Inevitably we had taught at Bristol. I was doing some supervision for the students as a senior house officer and so on. And then when I was a medical student, I was still carrying on doing some locums and teaching people a bit. But then even at med school, once I qualified, you would look after some students. But I enjoyed that part. I loved the mentoring part, one-to-one or small groups. But I'd never imagined, I hadn't really thought about running university courses at that stage. Although the idea of it's not entirely true, because I just remembered I had a talk with my Dean, Professor Matthews, amazing guy, who at that time, I went to his office and told him, Prof, I want to do oral surgery. And he kind of told me, okay, well, you have to pass your finals first. I said, yeah, but how do I go about it? And then he said, to do it properly, you have to do medicine and da-da-da. And he told me at that point, I remember it very well, we have a shortage of academic oral surgeons. You should go into academia.
So maybe the seed
was planted by Prof. Matthews after all. I don't know, but basically he told me at that time. I remember, obviously it meant something, but I didn't really think about doing academia at that stage. I would have done my PhD earlier then, otherwise.
So coming on to your PhD, I was going to come on to your Thank you fed me in. So your PhD, where are you with that now?
Well, I'm kind of a year and a half in, doing it part-time, and I love it. I love being in the lab, and it's a different world, and I lose time sometimes come out at 6 o'clock thinking, wow, where did that day go? But it's exciting because I'm looking specifically at these aspects of peri-implantitis and particle release, and can we figure out a bit more about this, about the techniques we use. And I've gone somewhere where there is nothing clinical, so it's basically the materials departments and so on. So I mean, nobody knows me from Adam there, which is great because I'm coming in fresh. They've got fresh ideas, and I think it's quite a healthy situation because we're coming from completely different angles.
So you're looking at it from a metallurgy aspect almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So the key things for me is, okay, does the material we use matter?
Yeah.
Do the techniques we use matter?
Yeah.
One is particle release. And is anything we do, is there any evidence? Can I show whether any of this is toxic or causes an inflammatory reaction? So that's where we are at the moment. We're in the process of writing an article, so hopefully that will get published soon. Let's see. If it does, it would be great. But then the next step is looking at getting collagen attachment around an implant. With the teeth, we've got that. When you look in any situation where a prosthesis comes through from deep organs to the surface, it's coming through the skin or through the mucosa, there is a risk of infection. I mean, hairs and nails are different because they don't come through, they're still from the dermis.
Yeah.
They're not going through the deeper organs. Whereas implants or teeth, they're coming from bone right through the mucosa into this environment, scary environment. But there is the protection around the teeth with the collagen attachments. It's a physical barrier. I mean, you've also got the periodontal ligament with good blood supply, mesenchymal stem cells, repair and all that. With implants, we don't have any of that. It's a very weak connection. So my next stage is actually, can we make that connection any better? Can we get a decent connection? And that's, so far, there's no evidence that we can, but there are different things people have tried. Orthopedic surgeons are trying different things, which have worked partially for prosthesis. But it's different in the mouth when you want things to be aesthetic as well.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
It's an interesting one. I mean, I was talking to Jose, and he was saying they're looking at the designs on the abutments to change the shape of those to try and see whether or not they can change it. We're going off track a little bit, aren't we?
No, that's right. Yeah.
But the way the fibres then adhere around those abutments in a different way to the shape that the abutments are already forming at the moment. So platform switching was one, but that's totally different in terms of potentially how we're going to get healing around these different shapes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think
it's fascinating.
At the moment, the way from my own review so far has been, look, there's going to be a potentially combination of things. So it might be a combination of looking at topography and having porosity perhaps, as well as you have to look at several things. The surface energy of the material, is it stable? But in essence, we want to get that collagen insertion.
Yeah.
I know there are studies have shown that there is collagen orientation towards. Normally, when you take a histological view, you see collagen fibers going around the implant or parallel to the implant, right?
But not actually
towards it. There's some. I won't mention company names because we just want to remain, neutral with it. They've shown that actually fibers go towards the implant through grooves and so on.
Yeah.
But orientation of fibroblasts and hence the collagen release in that orientation doesn't necessarily mean attachment. So you can guide the direction of fibroblast activity and fibroblast orientation, but that doesn't necessarily mean your collagen is now really strongly attached.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to go sort of like the nano surface technology, and that's kind of maybe the way that we're going to get to when we kind of see this?
Yeah, I think nano surface is looking at, there is some research on nano surface. At the moment, from what I've seen, it's still inconclusive whether for soft tissue is going to help or not. Bone, osseointegration is different level. There's a lot done there, and I think it's exciting, but you see that. But for soft tissue, it's a different story.
Different story, isn't it? Yeah.
Because epithelial attachment is different from fibroblast connective tissue attachment, and which is different from bone attachment. One of the ways probably we're going to see some advances is through biomolecular coatings.
Yeah.
So people using specific sequences of amino acids to attract the right cells to actually do the right thing. But then the surface has got to still be important.
Yeah.
So you might attract the right cells to do the right thing, but it's still got to attach somehow.
Still got to attach. Yeah.
So it's interesting.
We went deep again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where do you see the future? I mean, VSS has grown in a very short space of time, in my opinion, from you, and then to your harem of specialists, me included in that, and then into the academy.
Yes.
And you know, I've watched the academy sort of really bloom. Where do you see it finishing? I mean, I know that you had your course or your thing in Cyprus, course.
It's a conference.
Conference, that's the right word. Yeah. So you had the conference in Cyprus. I know that you're looking in other countries, extending things. So there's no stopping you, is there? Really? I mean, where do you see it going next?
I hope we can provide more across the UK as well. More sites, and then certainly abroad. We would love to go abroad. We've already kind of started looking at that. As to which countries, at the moment, making connections to see where would be most use and where it would work best. Really, we don't want to expand too fast, so that we lose what quality we're building here.
Yeah.
So we are expanding, but the team is expanding as well. So lucky to have met people on the network that are working like yourself, and
I'll pay you later.
I hope so. I mean that. I mean, I really find that I really think it's a blessing to work with people who are like-minded and enjoy working with, and we grow together, and people come up with ideas as you do very frequently, and we can make it grow without losing what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So we're looking at faculties abroad, but also always looking at how to take the course to the next level, how to improve it, and how to.
What do you think? Kind of, I suppose what I'm asking you really is, you're not happy. Happy is not the right word, but you're not satisfied with, and satisfied probably isn't the right word either. You have it seems to me when I look from a distance, you have a drive. It's a very quiet drive. It's very smooth, but it's there. It's like it's this lovely quiet train that's moving along at some speed. And are you aware of that? I mean, I see it. I see. When I'm talking to you now, and I mean, some of this stuff is we haven't talked about before. I didn't know some of these things. And for me, you've gone from making the decision that you took that big risk, you took that big step. You've then gone into the teaching, and you've gone from VSS into VSSAcademy. I mean, can you see the pattern where you're going? And then you've branched out, and
in my mind, I see it. I like the way you see it better than I see it in my mind.
Yeah.
In my mind, I see. I just see myself like what's next. Not because I think I have this drive. I want to do more, and I'm unsatisfied. It's because I think. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
There's so much that could be done. And one of my things has been, somebody told me, if you go alone, you might go fast, but if you go together, you'll go far.
Yeah.
And that's what I've kind of actually meant a lot to me, because I'm actually joining up with colleagues, friends, and moving together. We can do a lot more.
Yeah.
As long as we're doing good work and we're proud of what we're doing, then that's, for me, that's what keeps me going and gets me up in the morning. I think if there's a project, I love projects. If there's a project that can work and it's got something good coming out of it. So if we're actually providing training, that's getting people out there doing good work, promoting them, and I benefit, everybody benefits, and that's keeps the buzz going. But I don't think. I don't know why we keep going, because I think the potential is there.
Yeah.
And I think partly as if we have a good product, then it grows organically anyway. But I think actually we can go next. There's nothing, certain areas, okay, let's provide this where there is a need. So some areas we've looked at where I thought there was a need, and actually it didn't work out. So because I thought actually we misread the market. So I'm learning a lot about that aspect of it. I think the difficulty for me, the way I see it is, I'm wearing different hats sometimes, and I find that challenging because, for instance, when you're doing clinical work, you're on that mindset, and it's great. And if you're doing clinical work most of the week, that's the mindset we have. Then I've gone to the mindset of having meetings about the business aspect of it. That's a different mindset. And then there is the research mindset. When I'm in the lab, it's a completely different mindset. Not being this might be not politically correct, but they say women can multitask.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
So I have to stop that mindset, go into the other mindset.
You're either the implantologist or you're the course.
Yeah.
What's your title at UCLan?
I don't know. Oh, course leader.
So
you call many things.
but this is where you are. I mean, it's you are in that zone, aren't you? You're either doing the technical work or the clinical work, or you're either doing the administration and you're an administrator, or you're a people manager. But sometimes it's very difficult to have all of those going on. Although you are all of those people.
It's difficult. It's difficult to switch off on something, especially with reading articles and doing the research part. Because I would love to have a whole month to just nail something completely. Because you read into something, you want to complete something you're thinking about. The same with the project. It'd be nice to just take one project and run it through. So that part I find challenging.
Yeah.
There's lots of different things that I have to come in and out of.
Yeah.
Rather than just stick to one thing and go through, but because I've got good people, like you mentioned Alan, fantastic to have Alan on board, so we work together. On the course, we've got amazing faculty, so we work together. Yeah. So it's coming to a stage where actually, that's what I was saying, when we're working together, we can move the whole thing.
How easy was it for you to sort of give away, if you like, not that you're giving it away, but to delegate some of the aspects of what you did early on? So when Alan came on board, with what Alan does and his fantastic organisation skill set and his momentum, his enthusiasm, how easy was it for you to go, it's what I do, but...
No, it's a good point. Actually, with Alan, it was easy.
Yeah.
I had thought about different aspects, and I had actually tried people before, which didn't work out as well.
Yeah.
Not fault of their own, it just wasn't the right thing. But when Alan came on board, and it just clicked, and we worked well together, and I think it was easy because actually I don't know if you like I'm giving anything away. I think it's great actually. Alan, I would love to give you more, mate.
Yeah.
Because we work well together. He's had a huge amount of experience in the. As you know, he's been in ITI and Straumann course. It was leading the whole academic side of it through that for many years. And he's got a very nice way about him, people management, and he's managed teams and so on. So I think we make a good team. It wasn't hard at all to do that when Alan came. Before that, I found it hard.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't happen before.
Yeah.
I tried it, didn't work out, and then when I was the right time, actually, everything was coming together, through the UCLan acceptance, everything was coming together. So I remember actually feeling there's a huge amount coming together. I really needed somebody, and at that time, we actually met, and it was when Alan was looking for something new as well.
Yeah, so it's almost like a perfect donk.
Yeah, absolutely. It was perfect timing. And once we joined up, everything came together nicely, and then we were ready to hit the ground running. It was just the right time. So but that part of it was easy. Giving things away clinically, again, it wasn't... I made mistake once at the beginning, and by not checking everything. What I mean by that is it's not just clinical skills of somebody we look at now. I look at their attitude generally. Do they like teaching? What's the outlook on things? And in the beginning, this is going back 15 years perhaps, I got somebody on board, not in my own field, but in a different field that was focused purely on the clinical ability and the clinical experience and so on. And it didn't work out with with that, and I learned a lot from that. That what I'm looking for is not just the clinical experience and knowledge, but also their attitude towards whoever we're mentoring, whoever we're working with.
Yeah.
So that, you know, when we're working with somebody in their practice or we're mentoring somebody, we have their best interest in mind.
Yeah.
It's not about me. It's about them and how can I. And if it's not right for them, then to be honest enough to say, look, I don't think this is the right thing to do. But to have that approach,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, you might do what I do, and sometimes when I'm going out for a meal or even to the pub, well, these coffee these days, but you might be served by somebody that has a certain something about them,
Yes.
and you might think, oh, you know, you're good.
Yeah.
You've got that people skill.
Yeah.
And you just spot them.
That's right.
And it clicks, and
it's very important. I think.
I think it's hugely important.
It's about relation. I also, if we have that attitude, hopefully, that's shown towards the patients as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I think it's the right way. So, when I've found to the network, I know people, people to kind of have said, right, I can see us working together.
Yeah.
And that's how it started, getting people on board. So far, we haven't put an advert there saying we need X, Y, and Z, because it's all been through meeting, knowing somebody. There might come a stage where we have to interview people, but we'll have the same mindset and we'll have had more experience into who we work with and get more of the kind of faculty involved in making that decision. So it's, I'm glad to say VSSAcademy is not about me, it's about the team, it's about us working together. So I don't want to make it my face, I want to make, the faculty, it's much stronger that way.
Yeah.
Just make one man, it shouldn't be a one-man show.
Yeah.
And that was the vision as well. Even from the very beginning with VSS, I wanted to be the whole team that grows, rather than just being about me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think because it makes the whole organisation stronger.
Did you sort of sit down and, I mean, it's not I'm not being rude, but your name is what it is. It says what it does on the tin, doesn't it really? Visiting Specialist Services Academy, Visit Specialist Services when you're doing that.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to come up with a name?
That's a very good question, because I remember thinking about, at that time, I had somebody who kind of, I got some coaching from, and he told me, you need to come up with a name.
Yeah.
So I went away and thought about it, and then I actually remember the moment I was in a car, and it suddenly hit me, well, why am I complicating it?
Yeah.
I just call it what we do. We're visiting, providing specialist services, visiting specialist services. It suddenly hit me. VSS sounds all right.
Yeah.
So that was it. That's how it started. And I kind of asked a few colleagues. They said, "Yeah, that sounds all right." Things have moved on. Now we have this educational thing.
Yeah.
We've got VSSAcademy. Okay, for us people who know VSS and know how VSS develop, VSSAcademy makes sense. But we're kind of contemplating whether we should think about anything to do with the name to make it more. For the educational side, we should be looking at that. Alan and I are kind of studying that right now to see, should we look at doing something with the name that's more descriptive of what we do now.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's evolved a lot, hasn't it?
Exactly,
From there, I mean, look at what we've just talked about.
Yeah.
And do you feel, I mean, someone turned around to me a while back, and very different field, but very similar to yourself. Again, I say driven, and they had a vision of where they wanted to be, and probably a little different to you that they were there, but they said they have a hole that they need to fill, this sort of need. Do you feel like that at all? Do you feel like
financially sometimes? No, I'm joking. No, I think I wouldn't say it's a hole. I just think I like to see it working to the best potential.
Would you say then maybe in a different way that you get a satisfaction from it? It makes you feel quite happy, or you enjoy it, or you can kind of sit back and say, I've had a good day today. That's we've had a good feedback from the students.
Yes, definitely. That's definitely having. Whenever I give a lecture, I take the feedback very seriously. So I actually read everything, and if there's a negative feedback, those are the ones I I mean, I appreciate all the positive stuff.
You
of course.
do that because you asked me that, and I'm thinking, what are you asking me for?
And then it's important, though, isn't it?
I think this is a characteristic that is used to describe you very well, and that's humble. And I think that's a very good character to have.
I need to get my wife to watch this then. Particularly this aspect that you just said.
Yeah, well, I can't give you marriage advice. Certainly can't. But I do hear that a lot. I mean, I was on a course yesterday, and somebody was talking. They'd done some training with Amir, BPP.
Yes.
Yeah, and they said, "Say hello to Fadi to me," and I said, "Yeah, of course." Unfortunately, I've forgotten his name. I'll read it.
Yeah.
But one of the things he said is that a really humble chap.
Okay, really that's good to say.
And I would say the same, if I'm honest.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment. I like that.
In terms of your knowledge and your skills, and you walk away and then you turn around to me and say, "How was that?" And you've done a lecture, and I've just thought, how was that? They're all silencing in awe of the knowledge that you have, and the way that you convey it, I think, is wonderful.
But I often think there's silence because they're bored to death and they want to just let them finish and go home. But so it's important.
I think you're a natural educator.
Thank you. That means a lot, because I like you said, I do feel happy when if I feel that after a hard day. I mean, lecturing for a whole day, as you know, is quite hard, isn't it? It's tiring. Yeah. But if people have benefited from it, you forgot that, you get a buzz, don't you?
Yeah.
So that part of it is fun, but also seeing a plan of this MSc course coming together, and coming to fruition, and then seeing the first cohort going through. And I'm just trying to encourage them this morning, saying to them, look, you're nearly there, because it's a hard slog, doing, there's a lot of work, but they get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And they're nearly there through the first year of this 2-year program, and seeing that actually happening, it is satisfying, thinking, this was a dream a couple of years ago, and now it's actually happening.
What would you say with the kind of the little bits that sort of, I'll give you an example of what I mean by this, and then you can maybe answer the question. So, for instance, I looked after a lady recently, and it was a very harrowing experience for her to have the teeth out and then go from that to dentures to implants, and it's a life-changing experience for patients sometimes. And for this particular lady, it was very life-changing. The routine that she had to try and maintain her teeth was an hour a day effectively away from her family, to then go from that to take that step to have those teeth out. She's only quite young, our age, to have those teeth out which were failing, to then have the implants and then have the reconstruction. And she was quite reserved, and to see the kind of tears and the welling up, although she's holding them back, and she brought me a little gift. Hadn't got a huge amount of money, but went to Tesco's and just brought me a little. And that kind of hit me there. Yeah. And that's, to me, is why I do what I do, and the satisfaction that I got from that. Not satisfied, but that's the kind of, that's why. That's why I really
makes it
this.
Worth it.
Because that was life-changing. And there's more cases I could go on, but do you get that as well?
Definitely. I think, again, clinically, some of the reasons that, when you see somebody where you've improved the quality of breath with treatments, but in terms of the clinical aspects, seeing some people who were on the first cohorts that I taught first 1 or 2 cohorts, seeing them now having a referral practice.
Yes.
And then I love going to conferences and dentistry shows and so on, because you bump into people. Yeah. It becomes more of a social event. And, there are hugs and things, and the relationship that we get in the network, and I meet these people, that feels great. When I see them actually having done, from the very beginning of the course, now they've got their own referral practice going on.
So it's like watching your children grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, I don't want to, it is seeing this is the dream really as an educator, to see somebody doing well, isn't it? Yeah. And doing it the right way in my mind anyway, and then they develop new areas of skill and so on. It's great. the other icing on the cake is getting them back to work with us, the pathway. So, and that part of it is fantastic, because people, you see that they've done the training and come back and they work with us. That's for me.
And then to sit you down and video you.
No, I think that for me is it really is icing on the cake to say this is great.
Yeah.
This is what it's about. We kind of get each other to, there are people who help me get through my training, and I always remember them.
Yeah.
And I remember things they said. And the thing that would give me the buzz is people remembering hopefully some good things and that help them through their career.
Yeah.
That would be the icing on the cake for me as well. That, like I said, that feeling that, I hope I've had, it's a privilege to be able to influence somebody that way.
It is a privilege,
and I just hope I've been able to do that.
Yeah.
And you've got children as well, and I hope my children will do that. But certainly, as a parent, you say that. But certainly, as an educator, I would like to see, you try to influence positively, don't you?
Yeah.
And wherever we go, we try to do that. Whether it's at home with your own family, your own kids, or whether it's doing education from people trying to learn from your experience. I think that's what I would say gives me the buzz, seeing people getting to where they want to be, but also sometimes people give feedback years afterwards. Oh, you said this, I remember that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Somebody